Well, being a non-smoker, I couldn't tell you how much a packet of cigarettes costs, but I do know it's a lot, and it's one of the things that's contributed to bringing down the rate of smoking in Australia. A lot of people still smoking, though. We have about 19,000 smoking-related deaths each year in this country. And now there's potentially an alternative, something called vaping, e-cigarettes. The government, though, still takes a dim view of that. Dr. Brad McKay is here for our regular health report to discuss this. I'd never really heard about this. I'm not a smoker, so it's not something I think about. But vaping, what is it?
Yeah, so rather than smoking a combustible cigarette, what we normally see people on the streets with, it's getting an oil. So that can either be like flavouring or a very simple solution without nicotine, or it can also have nicotine added to it.
And
so
that's the critical distinction, isn't it, in the government's mind? If it has nicotine in it, they've banned that.
Yeah, so that's unavailable to be sold in Australia. There are some caveats. So some people can get it on prescription from a doctor. We can use it as a therapeutic product with the prescription, but yeah, it's very rare for that to happen.
It's not stopping people being able to access it, though. How are they able to do that? Online?
Well, this is the weird thing. So in America, in Canada, in the UK, and even in New Zealand recently, all of these other countries that are sort of similar to Australia in our way of life, they're all bringing on e-cigarettes on board. And so a lot of people are swapping from using combustible cigarettes, burning it, to using e-cigarettes. And we're finding that there has been a significant drop in the number of people who are smoking overseas. But in Australia, yeah, there's still this blanket rule that we're unable to use it.
And it's the nicotine. So if you have the liquid without the nicotine, that's okay.
So if you go into a store in Australia, you can still buy the e-cigarette equipment, so the cylinder.
I see people using them.
And you can buy the liquid if it doesn't have nicotine in it. So this part of the debate is that the nicotine or the liquid that's there could be detrimental to people's health. So we're not wanting for people to smoke that or to vape that. But you can still go into a store and buy that. It's just that the nicotine's taken out.
Now, what about the harmful effects of this? Because just doing some research into this, it is significantly less harmful than traditional cigarettes.
Yeah, so we know that traditional cigarettes, about 2 out of 3 people will die prematurely from smoking, from cigarette or tobacco-related illnesses. We know people are dying prematurely all around Australia. And our estimates at the moment is if people are using e-cigarettes, then it decreases their risk by about 95%.
And does that relate to the other health-related issues as well, things like asthma and so on? Does it decrease that as well?
So there have been a number of people that have been going from burning cigarettes to vaping, and they've found that their lung function gets better, they're able to walk around the block a lot easier. We know that it's going to be decreasing people's risk of cardiovascular disease and emphysema as well. But there are still some risks from it as well. So vaping isn't 100% safe. There's still that 5% of the risk of smoking.
And as a doctor then, if you're presented with a situation where someone's, a lifelong cigarette smoker, can't get off it, but here may be an alternative, what's your ethical position here? Is it to say, well, I should be steering this person towards e-cigarettes, which is going to be, demonstrably less harmful?
Yeah, so overall, I'm advising my patients
don't do it at all.
Don't smoke at all. Don't start smoking because it's difficult to stop.
But we live in the real world where people are having, they're addicted to cigarettes.
Yeah, I've talked to patients today who have had trouble getting off cigarettes. They've tried it time and time again. They've had thousands of times trying to stop that habit. And a lot of my patients who have been on heroin, they find that it's easier to give up heroin than it is to get off nicotine. So it's that addictive. So the concern that we have in Australia is that if you are smoking nicotine-containing e-cigarette liquid, that there are some chemicals in it which are known to, that could possibly cause cancer over a long period of time. We've had e-cigarettes invented in about 2003, so we've only had a decade and a half of knowledge about this topic. And so a lot of the conservative people in Australia are sort of waiting for time to play out and see if people are developing problems from using e-cigarettes.
Is this the government's position? Is this why they're saying no no to this. We're not going to lift the ban. And Australia has been, you know, traditionally a leader in cracking down on tobacco in the first place.
Yeah, Australia's been a brilliant leader across the globe with decreasing cigarettes. So we've had brought in plain packaging, we've made all of these facets. We've been increasing the price of cigarettes, but at the moment the rates of cigarettes are sort of plateauing at the moment. So other countries are sort of starting to get on board and go a little bit further because they're getting people to use e-cigarettes. It's a viable option for them, but Australia is faltering at this point of time.
The final question here, I suppose, and it's one we hear a lot, is what does this lead to? Now, you may have a new generation of kids who once would have smoked, who may go to e-cigarettes, and that may lead to something else. Is that also a concern here of the government?
Yeah, there's conflicting research. So some research has come out saying that if e-cigarettes are available across the board, that teenagers are more likely to smoke e-cigarettes. If they're smoking or if they're vaping e-cigarettes, then they can be more likely to go into smoking real cigarettes instead. Some people will say, teenagers and adolescents are likely to experiment whatever's going on. So they may have smoked anyway. So there's a lot of banter, there's a lot of discord amongst the medical fraternity. So we're still waiting to see how this plays out. But yeah, if we're looking at harmonisation, if we're trying to stop somebody from smoking, if we know that e-cigarettes are going to be 95% safer for them to vape compared to smoking, then a lot of people in Australia don't have that as an option at the moment. And there's been a lot of pressure to open that up and to enable a few other options for people to use e-cigarettes.
Well, there you go. I knew nothing about vaping, and now I do. You learn something every day. Brad, thanks for coming in.
Cheers.